Nourishment. When I was thinking about who I would have on this episode as a guest, this person popped into my mind. And it's funny because she and her husband are big advocates of the carnivore diet. And I am not necessarily a carnivore. And at the same time, they have used the carnivore diet to much success for their physical ailments. But in turn, it ended up having just a miraculous, I'm going to say, effect on so many other aspects of their life. And so I wanted to have her also on so that she could talk about some of the personal experiences and transformations that she's made. I've worked with her as both a client and she's also just a dear friend, Tracy Diaz. And she's Tracy Beanz on Twitter and Instagram. She and I connected a number of years ago, and she's just a really genuine, sweet, beautiful soul. And she's doing the best that she can to try and make change in the world in her way, in a very authentic way. And she's powerful, man. So I really hope that you enjoy this episode because I feel like she is a perfect example of somebody who has chosen very specific ways to nourish her mind, body, and soul. And she's got lots of wisdom to share with you today. So I hope you enjoy this episode and let's get into it. Well, let's get into talking about nourishment here. So you are one of these people who I have found your energy to be extremely nourishing for a very long time, just in being who you are. And I think that has to do with the fact that you are 1000% authentic, which is the highest frequency. Yay. There is no hiding anything with you. You are just 100% how you feel. If you're questioning something, you're going to, if something doesn't sound right to you, you're going to want to dig into that a little bit more. And at the same time, you just have this levity about you, even when you're talking about things that are not feeling, you know what I mean? Not feeling levity, but yeah, that's your energy. And so, I connected with you, on I don't even know. I guess on Twitter I found you years and years ago. Yeah. Then I emailed you and we got on the phone and we started connecting and, everything in the world you are, you're kind of moving through this investigative journalism field and, moving into, well, you're always going to be an investigative journalist, I'm sure, but you're kind of moving from like the world of politics and news and narratives and things and much more into consciousness and awareness and, humanity and just like much big picture stuff. And, nourishment is such a huge part of that. And, I'd love to hear just right off the bat what you think about news and, politics and all of that stuff and how nourishment plays a role or doesn't play a role in any of that.
You know what's crazy is that like you hear all the time people say, well, don't put on the news, don't turn on the television, don't. And like part of me thinks that's like a bypass because we do live in the real world. And part of me thinks, yeah, don't ever do that. Don't ever turn on the television. Because I would be lying if I said that I was always able to maintain like a high frequency, positive, optimistic energy and also be enveloped in all of this garbage, negative, toxic, terrible stuff that was my job to be involved in. And I don't think that politics always has to be that way. As a matter of fact, I think it's incumbent upon us to make it different. But nourishment's important. Like you need to know when to step away. You need to follow your internal guidance system and know when to step away, even if it's just for a couple hours. And I think that because there's such a neurochemical response to socials and like to news and information, and people are kind of just starting to come out of their shells and understand that there's more to this than what we've been told. They're like addicted to it. They don't know where to turn. They don't know what to trust. And they've forgotten how to look inside to that internal internal guidance system that they have, everybody innately born with. So walking away and nourishing yourself with some grounding or some sunlight or some water or some food or some meditation is like crucial to maintaining your whole being.
Yeah.
Or prayer, whatever it is that you do, like there's no judgment about whatever that is, but whatever it is that brings you spiritual wellness, health, and vibrancy, you need to do more.
Hmm.
If you find yourself frustrated at some account on social media that you're yelling at through the comment section, that's probably a clue that you need to put your phone down and walk away. Like,
Yeah.
I was investigating child pornography, for goodness sakes, for hours and hours. I mean, it like, I would get physically sick
Hmm.
and then wonder why I didn't feel well, like ever. Well, I mean, you're covering yourself in the most negative vibration there possibly could be, and then empathizing with the victims of it, right?
Right.
So, so
Yeah.
like you're like taking all of this in and not doing anything to remind yourself of, who you really are, why you're here, what your purpose is, whatever long-winded answer for
Yeah.
your question, but
Yeah, no, I think it's important, and kind of goes to how important it is for us to just always be checking inward, right?
mm,
Like anytime that we're doing things, most of us are just on autopilot. So that
yep,
nourishment does come in when we're consciously aware of the choices that we're making, whether it's what we're eating, who we're hanging out with.
all important.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
So
you can scroll socials and look at cats for hours if you want. Much better.
yeah,
Much better.
it's true. I know. I think it's where the comments is where, oftentimes where things get super low vibe. But so now, talking about nourishment, most people think about food. And right now, with a lot of things that are going on with food in general, there's just a lot of controversy. And it's funny, we were just talking beforehand, like my husband's cholesterol, he just got the report back and his cholesterol is really high. And like when we were raised, cholesterol needed to be, or even just like a year ago, cholesterol is supposed to be under 200, right? My sister's cholesterol was like 3 something, and the doctors were freaking out. And she was in her 40s. And so then, now we have it can be above that, or it should be above that. And depending on who you're listening to, and it's a different story, whether it's cholesterol or should you be eating vegan, carnivore,
Mhm.
pescatarian, Mediterranean diet. I mean, there's all these things. And so you have such a good perspective and also just such a good story about how you and your husband have used nourishment as a way to literally heal your bodies. And so I'd love to have you talk about your experience and your thoughts on that.
So like from the time that I was 21, I've been on this like spiritual path. So it's been a long time.
Yeah.
And the last like 5 years have really, it just went into overdrive. And what I've realized through time, overthinking through this, is that about 4 years ago is when my husband and I decided to change our health for the better, or at least make better choices about our health. And that was coincidentally or not when this latest wave of growth happened for us, especially my husband. So the reason my husband and I are carnivore, and the reason is that my husband got his blood work back and his cholesterol was a little bit high. And he was like, I can't, he was, very overweight. He
What
was
was a little bit high for him?
2 points. Like, it was like, I'm like, Will, and it's like everything else was perfect on his lab work, right? But he was not well. And we can get into a whole thing about the science of that, but we won't. But so he started looking around and he found he had MS, optic neuritis, lesions on his spine, clinically depressed. I mean, clinically depressed. Had been taking SSRI medication, which was, as you know, me of all people, we were at like the point where we were desperate, and I was like, just do it, because there was no hope in sight anywhere.
Mhm.
What insomnia, all kinds of health issues. He weighed 390 pounds. And long story short, he found keto and he said he was going to do it. And then I stumbled across carnivore because I saw a Lion Diet video.
What's the difference between carnivore and keto?
Carnivore is very strict, no carbs, no sugar. Keto, you can have between 50 and 75 grams of carbohydrates and vegetables. So
Okay.
they're two they're kind of the same because you're really severely limiting your carbs and sugar on keto, but you're allowed to have vegetables. Carnivore is just meat, protein, and dairy products if you really want to, throw them in. So we went carnivore because I saw this video about how Michaela Peterson was so sick and then healed all of her autoimmune diseases on carnivore. And I said, well, you might want to try this, even though it's a little extreme. And he said, yeah, I'm going to do it. And I said, all right, well, then I'll do it with you because I'm not going to make you do it alone. And that was it. I mean, that was the beginning of such a revolutionary shift. His lesions are gone on his thoracic spine. They say that's absolutely impossible to happen. His body healed. His eyesight is now 20/20. He lost over 200 pounds. He's like a healthy 175 now. He is no longer depressed. He's off all of his meds. As a matter of fact, he came off his meds and didn't tell me he did it. Which was, men, don't be wise, okay? Like that pissed me off, but I was glad. Like, okay, you did it, great. Anyway, we're like spiritually, that just supercharged. Like I started seeing gratitude out of him. I started seeing like happiness out of him. I started seeing hope out of him again. And, then we're together as a couple. And here I am flying on my high little cloud, like just really revving everything up. And everything just started snowballing from there in all the right ways, not the wrong ways.
Yeah.
But it was because of the nourishment that I was giving my body, what I needed. But I don't think, listen, I would advocate it for anyone. But what's most important is how you feel about what you're putting in your body. How do you feel about what you are consuming?
Right.
If you feel good that you're having, vegetables every day, or like every once a week you have a sweet treat and you don't feel guilty or negative or bad about that, that's what really matters in my opinion. So,
well, and that makes sense because that's the frequency that you're experiencing, right? Like, because your emotions are creating your frequency. So if you have a good feeling about what you're eating, it's like my mother-in-law eats bologna and all these foods. She's 90 years old. It's working for her.
Yep.
She feels
there you
great.
Let her have her candy, for goodness sakes.
Exactly. Well, she can't do that now, but she's pretty much, I mean, the fact that she's still here, she's about ready to turn 91. But do you guys, in terms of sourcing the meat that you eat, that plays into it as well because the frequency is different?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Talk about that.
Yes. We didn't start this way, but as time went on, we started to we revere our nourishment. We revere our sustenance with such honor, right? Like people who think, oh, you eat animals, you're a savage. No, I honor that animal that is providing me what I need to live, right? So highly. And I want that animal to be treated like a princess / prince for its entire life. I want it to be the happiest cow that has ever graced with a beautiful life and humanely slaughtered. So we started searching for ranches that do this and don't, junk up their animals with chemicals and really care about these animals like they're part of their family, which is what happens with ranchers. They really love these animals when they're doing it right. And we will only eat from ranches like that now. We investigate, we talk to them. We make sure that what we're then putting in our body is coming from a place of pureness that we want. That doesn't happen for everybody and it doesn't have to, but it's how you feel about what you're eating. If your thoughts about eating the 70-30 ground beef from Publix change, then follow that. Just follow your inner compass.
Yeah, I think that's the core message, right? Is like just follow your inner compass. Okay, so speaking of following your inner compass and just in terms of nourishment, sometimes you have to make certain decisions in life in order to nourish yourself. And sometimes that means leaving certain things behind that maybe aren't as healthy for you. And this doesn't have to do with food, but maybe in terms of a place, a job, a relationship, whatever. I'd love to have you talk about that because it's not an easy thing to do. And you've done it very well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that a lot of it's honestly fear that holds people back. And I can't say that I've completely broken through that, but I'm working on it because I recognize and feel it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's really fear of the unknown. Well, I've been doing this for so long. What happens if I just leave? What happens if it doesn't work? What happens if I can't feed my family? What happens if that person never talks to me again? What happens if that person judges me? What happens if all these things you have zero control over anyway? I mean, you don't know what they're thinking about you right now, let alone what they could think about you in 3 months or,
right.
And so I just decided, like, I'm here creating this reality. This is my experience. I'm here for a reason. I chose to come for a reason. And I'm going to be damned if I don't follow the next perfect step to get me there. Like, and that means charging through that stuff that will make you cry. But you know what? Crying is actually really amazing. It means you have a heart and you can feel. I've done a lot of that over the past several months.
It's okay.
And you know, like I tell my kids now that I understand this so clearly, like feeling loss or feeling like you miss somebody or being upset that you can't see them just shows you how much love you have.
Mm-hmm.
It's a positive thing. Like if you didn't care, you would never know what it was what the experience of that much love would be. So instead of looking at it like I don't get to see this person, look at it like, wow, I love them so much and that's the most amazing thing in the world. And so that's how I've tried to look at things. Like I know eventually we all go and we reunite and we talk to each other and we're all one anyway, and it'll all be out in the wash. And this is just a blip on the radar.
Yeah.
And so just live this moment like it's important because it's really all you have control over. And so you just have to charge through that. And you can grow so much more and learn to forgive and like, you know, learn all of these amazing compassionate skills that I don't think you get unless you face that wall and
Yeah.
nourish yourself with what's best for you and what you really want to do instead of always worrying about everybody else, which is something many of us do.
Yes, for sure. I know. I went to this Peter Crone event. Do you know who Peter Crone is?
No.
He was one of the healers, experts, whatever, that was in the Heal documentary, in Kelly's documentary. And
I
then,
love that.
yeah. And he is just excellent. And so I went to, I wasn't even expecting to go to this. One of my clients wanted to go and I looked and there were tickets and I said, let's go. And it was so fascinating to watch him walk people through these processes of what their blocks were, how those started when they were children, and then how they could instantly move through. And he talked to 4 people, and all 4 of those people in 2 hours. So maybe it was like 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes, each of them. They each had different universal issues that they were blocked, whether it was, I can't find a relationship, I'm, not happy or satisfied.
And you're really blocking yourself.
Exactly. That's
literally.
Yes. Okay. So that's what it was, is that Peter Crone kind of walks them through, okay, here's your block. And then he looks at, what was your relationship with your parents? And then he talks about what was their limiting belief that happened when they were a child. And I'm gonna come around to this. You're gonna understand why I'm talking about this. Anyway, so he goes and walks people through this, yeah. And they literally have, in that moment where he's talking to them and they're talking and explaining, he lets them see why their limiting belief was a lie.
Amazing.
And then he talks about these prisons that you put yourself in. And then basically he gives you the key and you unlock the door to your prison and you're free within that period of time that he's talking to you. And so he literally freed these people from their limiting beliefs. And it's unbelievable, the beliefs that we hold on to from childhood that hold us back. And one thing that, with what you've done in your move forward and just all the things that you're doing, that I find fascinating, is that you didn't need somebody like a Peter Crone to point out to you what your limiting beliefs were. We did some of this work and the work that you and I do together, but you just were not afraid. And I think that's the key, is not to be afraid to ask yourself the questions and to know, that like you need to take care of yourself.
Yeah, I knew I was stopping myself from whatever's going to happen. Like I knew that I was in a self-imposed garbage dump, basically, of things that, like, forget blaming other people for it. Like, oh, my parents did this, my parents did that, or my sister did this, or my brother did that. Forget that. It's all you constructing this stuff, right? Yeah, they could have been terrible to you, but you have the opportunity now to deconstruct that stuff. And, I just straight out refuse to waste whatever time I have left here on this planet in that self-limiting spiral, when there's so much potential for everybody. There's so much potential that you can just, so.
Well, so for people who are listening to this, what we're talking about in terms of making the choices that move you forward is nourishment.
Yeah.
choosing nourishment, whether it's the foods that you're eating, if you feel like you're stuck in a pattern of not eating the right foods, just move forward and just dig into those questions and stuff. But for people who are listening who have resistance or are just blocked in some way, what tips do you have for them? What kind of simple tips that they could just take right now could they incorporate into their lives in order to choose nourishment?
So the first thing is to look at yourself in the mirror and love yourself. Realize that you are a beautiful, loving, warm, light-filled soul, and you are perfect just the way you are. Like, just love yourself. You need to be able to love yourself fully every single day. And one of the ways that you can do that is by telling yourself that you do. And it feels uncomfortable, but you have to do it. If you can tell your significant other, you can tell yourself. That's number one. Live as much time as you can in gratitude, even for the little things. Like, you might be financially struggling, but you still have a bed. You might be financially struggling, but you still have hot water. The little things. Think
Mm-hmm.
about those. And then just make the choices, because you have the choice all day long to do whatever, like to be happy, to be sad, to be angry, to be upset, to be whatever. Make the choice to nourish yourself in whatever way you are called to nourish yourself at that point. Does it mean you take a walk during lunch? Or does it mean maybe you sit and, you don't have that piece of cherry pie. Instead, you have, I don't know, organic cherry cobbler. Who knows? I don't know.
Okay. Baby
But you know what I'm
steps,
saying?
right? Yeah,
Choice. Yeah.
totally.
I mean, not everybody's going to be like, I'm never eating sugar again like me. That's crazy.
Yeah,
So
it's not easy to do that. Okay, so for how does nourishment play into your family, like with your kids?
I'm a better mom. I'm a better
Mm.
mom. My kids are thick. The way I look at it, seriously, my son is 16 and he's a thick-headed, stubborn kid. Great kid, but stubborn. And my daughter is 19 and she's flowering right now. So she's opening
Mm.
up more and understanding she doesn't know it all. So she's starting to open. But they're each individual souls having their own individual experience on this planet, right? So you just have to look at it like that. You can't force them to do things, but you can guide them. And if you're in this place where you're nourishing yourself, you're getting your
Yes,
spiritual, if you're you put the mask on yourself first, it's not just a cliche. It's literally if
true.
you'll pass out and then they'll pass out too. Like, do you
Yeah,
want that? No.
right.
So you got to take care of yourself. I like give a mandatory time. Like, you need mandatory time for yourself, period. And then you'll be better for kids and spouse and everything else that comes with it.
In times when there seems to be a lot of division and fear in the world, and there are a lot of people who are doing things like comfort eating and um, getting into arguments on social media. We sort of touched upon this in the beginning, but I
Mm-hmm.
just feel like right now, because it is so heavy in a lot of people's minds, what do you think is what do you think is going on there? A and B, like, how can we switch our thinking or, somehow leave listeners with a tip or something so that when they catch themselves in that moment to have compassion, but, you know,
Okay. So this is what I do because it happens to me all the time. When I'm about to respond to somebody and it's not kind, I stop myself and I ask myself, like, if somebody was going to say this to me, how would I feel? And then I think to myself, what about this is making me react this way?
mm-hmm.
And then I figure out what it is. What is inside of me is causing this reaction. And I write it down. I'm not even kidding you. Because then I'm like, okay, I have a jealousy issue here because I feel something about myself is inadequate. Because all of it comes out of you. All of it
Yes.
does. And so I do that. And then instead of, I will either not say anything or I will change it up and say something kind and mean it.
Yeah.
And mean it.
Yes. Yeah. That's
And
key.
that's how you do it. Like, if you're going to say something nasty and hurtful because somebody was nasty and hurtful to you, first of all, do what I said. And then also think about this. What is going on in that person's life and that person's experience that's making them act that way that, has nothing to do with you at all because you're doing
Right.
the same exercise. If everybody did that exercise, wow, what a change.
True. True. All right. So lastly, meditation.
Mm.
You're a huge advocate. You're just so deep in, people have no idea how deep into the consciousness and meditation space that you are. And in terms of nourishment, I just would love to have you talk about meditation as a source of nourishment or
It's
how it
great.
serves you.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's great because it gets you to kind of, you never turn off your brain. I think people should dispense with that notion. Like for me, stillness is almost unattainable most times because you're constantly thinking. It's very hard not to. I think people come into meditation expecting that they're just going to be able to like turn their brains off and not think about anything and then go into this other place. That's not how it's, we're human, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's a good way to take time for yourself, and given enough of practice, it's quicker to shut all of the demanding, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this stuff off, and start the, how can I grow here? What is this block that I'm encountering? Why am I thinking about things this way? Maybe I can think about them a different way. Well, how am I limiting myself? Those kinds of thoughts of like self-realization, self-actualization, learning those things start to happen with practice. And I do it often, every single day, as often as I can. If I can take my lunch break to do it, I will. If not, then I'm doing it at night, every single night. Because you're spending time with yourself and on yourself, right?
Right.
And it's super important. It's a breath of fresh air, and it leaves you refreshed afterwards. It really does if you devote yourself to practice. So
Totally. Especially important in the world right now.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
So now if people want to find you after they're listening to this, I'm sure they're curious more about you if they haven't heard of you before. You have a Substack?
Yes. I do. I haven't written for quite a little while now, but it is it's tracybeanz.substack.com, I think. Or the
Okay.
opposite, Substack. That I don't know.
It's
Just look up Tracy Beanz.
Yeah. And Tracy Beanz on Twitter, X,
With
whatever. Yeah.
yes, with a Z.
Yes. And
And
that's where you find you.
yeah, and I try to
Uncover DC.
yes. Yes. I try to leave people happier than when they got there every day. I try. I fail sometimes, obviously. Everyone does. But I really do try to keep my space positive and uplifting so that people who may not be having a day can have a better day. That's my goal. So
And that is why you are so perfect to be talking about nourishment.
I just want to make people happy. I want to make people feel joy. If I can do that every day, I'm doing the right thing. I'm so fulfilled when other people are happy and smiling and loving and
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Daily Healing. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please go ahead and leave a review wherever you're listening. And make sure that you subscribe because I send Reiki healing to each one of my subscribers on Substack, on to my podcast or my email list. I send out Reiki healing on the first of every month at 11 a.m. Pacific time. So make sure that you're subscribed so that you can receive the benefits of healing. And thank you so much again for listening to this episode. I genuinely appreciate your support and you listening. Take care.